Hi, it's Mark, stuck inside Photoshop again, and today we're going to be looking at frequency separation. What's frequency separation, I hear you ask? Well, despite this clue, it's got absolutely nothing to do with frequencies and sound and such, although my guitars might. Anyway, let's play the credits, roll our sleeves up, and get cracking. Alright, so welcome to the tutorial on frequency separation and other things. Frequency separation, I've always hated the phrase because it makes it sound technical, or rather too technical than it actually really is. Frequency separation is about colour and texture, so I just refer to it as colour and texture tool, or technique rather, because I strongly believe, as is evident from some of my other Photoshop tutorials, that there's a bit of a black art, assumed black art around Photoshop, and it needn't be so. There's lots of things you can do quite quickly which are very good. So I've got a tutorial called Slapdash Photoshop or something like that. I'll put a link to above it now, and go and check that out when you finish watching here. It doesn't have to be mysterious Photoshop. It can be quite easy. So we're not going to do frequency separation. We're going to play with colour and texture in doing some colour grading or changing the tones and looks of a picture. So before we do that though, one or two other little tips to warm us up to that, and the first one is about getting colours on your palette. So D for default, set your palette over here to black foreground and white background, and an X toggles between foreground and background. If you want to change the colour, you can click on there and you can choose a colour from anywhere in here to your heart's desire. You can even type in numbers down here if you knew the actual colour codes. There's a nice grey in the middle there, or you've got swatches and all sorts. If you don't see swatches and gradients and patterns and things up here, they're all available from window. So you just have to click them and they will appear, and click them again switches them off. So if I click that again, my swatches disappear, but I like to have my swatches, so I'll put them back up there. Another way, if you've got your B for brush tool and you want to use a colour already in your image, you just hold down your Option key or Alt key, and wherever you put your eyedropper, you just click and that colour is loaded into your foreground colour. So let's pick that lighter colour, that darker red colour, and you can see it gets loaded in. However, you might see other colours such as, you know what, that little duck over there. That's my logo for CyberDuck, which is a file transfer program I use to put photographs and things onto my website. But that's irrelevant. I like the yellow. I want to use the yellow in here. So how do I sample that? So if I hold on my Alt or Option key, and I can't actually get out, but you can sample outside of Photoshop if you use your eyedropper. Now, I is for eyedropper, not E, which it should be, but I is for eyedropper. Perhaps it was invented by Apple, so it's an eyedropper. Anyway, now that I've got I can actually click and drag outside the picture. And now I can sample any of the colours. As you can see, if I'm going down through these icons, you can see it actually changing colour till I'm on my yellow of the duck. But it's not quite the yellow I see. Why is that? Well, that is because I've got a thing called Presentation Assistant, which colours my cursor, as you can see. So it's partly clicking that. Let me just switch that off for a second. There we go, I for eyedropper. And then click and drag outside. And now when I'm over the duck, you can see I'll get better colours. Now, you may find, let's do that again. You may find that that's a bit dark. That doesn't look like yellow, but I'll click on it. And that is because of your sample area. Currently, I've got it set to point sample. In other words, a single pixel. Whatever pixel is under the very dot of that eyedropper is what will be picked up. And I don't know about you, but I can't see down to pixel level. So what I would rather do is take an average. I usually go about 5 by 5. So now, if I click and drag out to sample colours, oh, it's definitely got the yellows there. Yeah, as I move around the duck. And there you are, I've got that colour there. And it doesn't have to be on your desktop, it can be from other programs too. So if I just slide this over, to reveal my website. Here it is, and I click here and click I. Now when I slide this out of the frame, you'll notice something happened to the picture I'm currently on. It moves. Why did it move? Well, Photoshop's thinking, you're not showing all this picture, Mark, but you're moving your eyedropper over. I'm assuming you want to see what picture was just temporarily hidden off the window you have. So I'm going to scroll it for you because I'm very helpful. That's all that happened there. So if I improve that, come back, if I do a Control I, once I'm in Photoshop, Control O, sorry, to get the whole picture to fill what window shape I've got. Now click and drag. It didn't scroll the picture because it doesn't need to. It was just being helpful. And now over here I can pick from another program. So as you can see, if I go on colour and you watch in here, click and drag, you can see how it's following around and picking out pictures, out colours for our pictures. And that's how you can load a picture. Perhaps you've got a favourite website which has got a nice colour patterns on that you rather like, or a series of ones which represent a particular tonal range that you want. You can just keep coming and picking from there with this tip. So let me just put this back so you get a bigger screen. Let me re-enable my presentation assistant. There we go. So that's the first one. That is how to access colours, both things you probably already knew about colours and picking within, but hopefully things that you've just learned now where you can go outside of Photoshop and pick any colour you like from any program, any icon, whatever, as long as it's on your screen. That's tip number one on our way towards frequency separation. Alright, so this next tip is about using the curves adjustment layer, just one curves adjustment layer, to blend two pictures together, to bring in the colour, overall colour gambit, the tones, the look and feel that is, or grading as we would call it, of one picture into another. So if you bear with me, there'll be a few steps beforehand, which is just interesting to demonstrate. I want to use this young lady with an umbrella into this scene. So again, with the ethos of my slapdash Photoshop, I'm going to try and do this as uncomplicated as possible. So the first thing I want to do is select the woman. So W will bring up my selection tool. I'm not bothered which tool it is brought up because I'm now going to click on select subject. Photoshop has made a selection which doesn't look too bad. Let's go select a mask. And on my selected mask, I tend to use the overlay. You may have a preference to one of the others. And it looks quite a good, even the hair there is like quite good. For the purposes of this, I think that's all right. The only thing that really jumped out is the tiny dot there in the crease of her elbow. So with the refine tool, I will just click once there. And there's a bit there between her arm and her coat, so I'll just click there. I'm quite happy with that. I will now say that OK to create the selection, and then I'll click on my mask button to create a mask. So now we've actually cut the girl out. It doesn't look very natural at all. What I'll generally do here is I go Filter, Other, Minimum. It just sharpens that up a little bit, as you can see, two pixel radius, and it really got rid of the little tiny line that was around the outside. So there's a whole science on this, but what I'm going to do is just do by eye very quickly. I have got another tutorial, which I'll put a link down below, which shows you how to exactly get the perspective correctly. But I'm just going to go Control T for this one, and eyeball this. Not the best placement in the world, but I think that's kind of okay size wise, because that's not what we're doing here. So I've now got the girl in place, but she doesn't look right. So how do we now get to the crux of this with our one curves layer? So we apply a new curves adjustment layer, and when the adjustment layer loads up, it comes with a mask. We're currently on the mask. Just make sure we click over back to the actual tool itself. What we're going to do is use these three eyedroppers for black point, for grey point, and for white point to prime our curves adjustment layer. And we're going to prime them from the background image. So each in turn we will double click. So double click, and we get a selection up. So let's use the colours behind to define that. And I think a good black point probably down here. We could choose up there somewhere in the sign. Let's go in the sign and we'll choose that as a black point. And click OK and allow it to be a default for now. And now let's find our grey point. Double click, and I think the grey is probably somewhere on a lighter part of the car there. Oh, let's go for the stanchion here. I think probably in the middle of there. And click OK. And our light point, there's a couple of options here, but I'm actually going to go for the bright light in the signage there, and click OK. So now we have actually primed, for want of a better description, our curves adjustment layer. I'm going to clip the layer, so it's now only going to apply to the picture of our girl, and switching it off and on makes no difference yet. We are now going to use the same 3 droppers on her, and this will apply what we've primed it to be the same points on her. So let's start with black point. So I think the blackest point on her is probably part in the shoe there, or in the crease of her boot. So let's go and click that. Now immediately that's brought the blacks to tie in with it, starting to really look like it's starting to match. Let's find a grey point, and probably I would think somewhere bright on our umbrella, possibly just below that white point there. Okay, and now let's find a white point. I'm tempted to go for the stanchion on that umbrella. So let the stanchion, the stick. What is the technical name for the bit for where you hold it and the top? The handle pole thing. There we go. And click on that. Possibly not. Let's try that again. Let's try a button. I think that's a little bit better, just looking at by eye. And now we've got traditional curves, we can actually do something with the contrast. So bring the darks down just a touch and the lights up just a little bit, and switch off and on. And there you have it. I think in just a minute or two, whatever that was, we've actually done a cutout, a position, and a merge using tools that come with Photoshop. So we use the so we're in W, we're on here, we're in W, and we choose the select subject, select a mask, got rid of 1 or 2 little issues, and then we went and created a curves layer, which is what this tip's all about, and we primed it from the background by using double click, and then we clipped it so it only applied to the layer beneath. Had we not done that, by the way, it would apply to everything. So we primed it and then we clipped it the layer beneath, and then we used a single click eyedroppers to go and select those same points, black point, grey point, white point of our target, and there you are. There's a simple composition, and now you might not have gone through all those tasks before, they might be new to you, but 1 or 2 practices and you'll have it nailed. Photoshop does not have to be hard to get really good results. Don't let people fool you that it's an art and it's all mysterious. It's just a process and understanding what the tips are. And if I can debunk any, then I'll feel good about that. Let me know and we'll move on to the next one. Oh, before we move on to the next one, do me a favour, if you want to follow and be notified of other videos such as this, click on subscribe and that bell so that you get a notification. And if you think this one warrants it by the end, give it a thumbs up. If you don't want to give it a thumbs up and you want to give it another direction of thumb, that's up to you. But I would appreciate you letting me know why, because then I learn how to improve. And so to the main event, where we're going to be looking at that thing called frequency separation, or playing with colours and textures and understanding what it is and why we'd use it, and more importantly, how we'd use it. So if you're ready, prepare yourselves. Hope you're sitting down. Boom. Okay, this is a picture of me. I'm using me, not a picture of someone else, because the idea of changing pictures, touching things up, doing airbrush type work can be contentious. Personally, my view is that if somebody's got a spot, a big spot on the end of the nose, which it wasn't there last week and won't be there next week, then that's fair game. If somebody's got a beauty spot somewhere, then that's parcel of what they are. Unless, of course, I was requested by the person to do something with their image. But there we go. I'm just going to get rid of this one because we don't need this one anymore. Don't save. Hope I don't make a mistake now and have to go back and re-edit some of this video. And first part of this, not necessarily frequency separation, is to just a technique you can use to keep an eye on how things work close and wide. What I mean by that is if we come up here to arrange and we create a new window, so we've got two windows exactly the same thing, and then we go to window and arrange and tile up vertically. It allows us on this one here, Control minus, to have a zoomed out view, and on this one we can actually zoom in. So we're maybe zoomed in and working on something such as let's do something with the tones of my skin, awful as it is, and go to curves and choose the red channel to remove some of the red in my face and just start to take that down. Now not only can I see how that looks close up for the desired effect I was after, but I can also see how it works on the overall picture, and that might make me want to pull things back, whereas I don't think this by the way, but I might think that that looked okay, but when I look at it in context to the wide picture I might not like it. So sometimes you want to see how things look good, how look close and far away at the same time, and that's that particular one. So I'll just close this one and we'll put this one back to the middle, which is Command 0 or Control 0 on a PC to get it back in. So this is our beautiful model for the day, and we're going to be looking at frequency separation. And incidentally, I will just get rid of that curves layer for now and go back to red face. So what is frequency separation? Well, really badly named, as I've said so far before. One is about creating a layer which kind of represents the colours. So let's do that first. So let's take a copy of the background layer, Control J, and we're going to call this colours. And what I want to do is I want to blur this. And I want to blur, where we go, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I want to blur this so that it's kind of the main features, the main contrasts and things are gone, and that's a bit too much. There you are. So kind of got the colours here without necessarily the texture. So let's give that one an OK. And let's take another copy of this. I'll put it at the top. And this is going to be all about our textures. So I'm going to call this one texture. Now then, what we want to do with this particular picture is just bring out the lines, if you like. Now to do that, bear with, but there's one or two little steps we've got to get through first. So we come to image and we choose something called apply image, which is where you can put one image over the top of another in a particular blending mode. And we want to choose the layer that was blurred, the layer we call colors. We want to apply that, and then we want to subtract it from a picture. Now this is important. It doesn't work unless you get these settings right. 2 for scale, so you can see that drops it down a bit, but the offset needs to be 128. And the reason why the offset is 128 is because our color ranges go from 0 to 256, and that is the midpoint. All right, so click OK with that. And that is how we prepare the texture layer. But however, one more thing, we actually have to change its blend mode to linear light. Now then, what difference has that made? None whatsoever. but individually that one gives us colours without texture, and that one gives us the texture. All right, so that is our starting point for now moving on and actually using these to help do something with some of the touch-ups and such we might want to do with our lovely model. So just to recap, in order to do this whole thing, we created 2 copies of the background layer. The first one, we decided to put a blur on so that we got rid of any real lines, but we kept all the colours in it. The second one, we got rid of, the second one we really accentuated the lines, and both of them together make no difference whatsoever. So here's the clever part. Let's put a new layer in between the 2 of them, and we call this, I don't know, touch up. And we want a brush, B for brush tool, D for default colours, not that we're going to be using them, just clean my palette. Make sure we've got a nice soft brush, which we do, and a brush size, we do want it quite low, so let's say about 7 or so on flow. I always leave my opacity up. I do have another video on what the difference is between flow and opacity. You'll find that in the playlist, which I link to below. Let's zoom in, so Command plus or Control plus on a PC, and let the fun begin. So firstly, let us get rid of 1 or 2 blemishes. So on my texture layer, this is just the texture, remember, not the colour. If we use something like the patch tool, and I select that, and I move it to one side. How this tool works is you select an area, you move to one side, and it replaces the 2 areas. Well, here it's only replacing the texture. You can see there's no change whatsoever to the colours and the little freckles and so on. So let's do another one. I've got a bit of a spot on my nose here, so let's take that and move it out. Okay, we're just moving the textures. So not that I'm going to de-wrinkle myself. I'd be on all day, but you can move that out and it doesn't change the colours. So by using the texture layer, I'm sure you can see it's very easy to actually get rid of some of these laughter lines. Yeah, get rid of some of my laughter lines. And what about this bit of spotty doofy going on my forehead? I tell you, I could be here all day. That didn't work. They don't always work. That wasn't very good. Control Z, put that back. There we are. But you can see how it works. There's a little blemish in there. Let's get rid of that because it's texture, but it doesn't change the colour. All right, any more I want to do? Got rid of those lines. Let's do this one here, shall we? And move the texture from about there. All right, so there you go. That is how you can address, Control D, some of the lines and blemishes. Oh, you've started me now, you see. Do you want to get a cup of coffee and come back in an hour? Right, stop. Right. So what about the other side of this coin, which is the color grading. So let's choose the touch-up layer, B for our brush tool, and we've got it set to a very low flow. We've got a nice soft brush. That's a decent size, I think, maybe a bit smaller, left-hand bracket key. And I'm going to sample colors from over here. So I hold down my Option key and click, and it loads that color in my palette. And I can just start to bring this over here, sample again. Just sample different places so it's not like you're painting everything the same shade coming in. Now here, whereas before you could see the textures were changing, the textures are staying exactly the same. Look at these little lines here. As I paint over those, I'll just sample down here and paint over those. You can clearly see I've changed the colour, but I've not actually changed the texture. Let's get rid of this darkness on my eyes, shall we? Oh, get rid of the darkness from the hunter eyes. That's what you want to do. God knows how many members of my family have had the dark eyes. So there you go. I've left all those lovely laughter lines, but I've managed to get rid of some of the darkness from the eyes. Let's take down here and just, there you go. All right, so let's zoom out a bit, Control Command thingy, and let's just put all these in a group, highlight them all, and click on the little group folder here, and we'll call it our messing about. All right, and we switch it off and on. Now, again, I was a little bit more heavy-handed than I would have been. I've explained in previous videos, I do tend to be a little bit more aggressive in applying things so that they are visually more easy to see on screen for you by the time it's gone up to a YouTube video and you may be looking on some other small device or something like that. Obviously everything else is in moderation, so I would actually start to lower the opacity on some of those, if not lower the opacity on the individual layers. And that's it. I hope you found that very useful. It can be used not just on portraits, it can be used on other things. If you want to change the colour and preserve the texture, whichever way around you cut it, this is what it's about. The textbooks call it frequency separation. I call it messing with colours and textures. I hope you like that. I hope the whole video made sense. Leave me some comments if you've got any questions. Check out the other videos I've put down before. Give me a subscribe if you want to follow the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like what you've seen today. And I'll call it a day. I think me and my laughter lines are now going to go and have a nice cup of coffee. Bye for now.